Is this what big joke? You're just gonna wait for like 2 hours from now and watch us play this out? It'll make you scary a lot.
Mic check for the YouTube stream. Mic check for the YouTube stream.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon. My name is Ann McCauley, and I'm the chair of the Scarborough Panel Committee of Adjustment. I'm joined by my fellow panel members, Mr. Reed, Mr. Stinson, Mr. Hahn, Mr. Said. In accordance with Section 45 and 53 of the Planning Act, as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from provisions of the zoning bylaw that applies to the land, permission to extend or alter lawful nonconforming uses, and consent to sever property to create lots. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississauga and Chippewa bands. Committee of Adjustment public hearings are now conducted in a hybrid in-person and virtual format. Some applicants and participants will make their submissions in person. Others will participate virtually by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform. The meetings are also streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel, and anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch on YouTube. Those who want to participate virtually and have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone and have the option of participating by video or audio only. All virtual participants will be automatically muted on entry. When your item is called, you will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelist when their item is being held. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You'll only be visible during your 5 minutes allocated speaking time. At all other times, your video will be disabled and you'll be reinstated as an attendee. For both in-person and virtual participants, Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Those participating through Wendex are not allowed to use share screen or any other panelist controls during a video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect this instruction. Receiving a copy of a decision of the committee. People attending in person today who want to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must fill out a decision request card, and those participating virtually need to submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email addresses because the Committee of Adjustment and the Toronto Local Appeal Board will be sending notification and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with a decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision to the Toronto Local Appeal Board or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the provincial government amended the Planning Act and generally removed rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. Only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, specified persons, and public bodies are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are sent out at the bottom of the decision. Excuse me. Our hearing procedure. I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. We will be starting with the afternoon agenda at item 18. Making your submissions. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you are reaching the 5 minutes, and the time is shown up on the board there. Any presentation or other materials you wish to submit to the committee must have been emailed in advance of the hearing. Staff and committee members cannot accept materials at the meeting. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address. Please remember to confirm your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and will make a presentation to the committee on the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application as substantially revised to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice have been informed of the changes. After the applicant, then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Generally, we will call on speakers in the hearing room and then those participating through Wendex. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they've finished their presentation. When all speakers are finished, the applicant agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speaker. That will mark the end of the discussion. Excuse me. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. I am asking the panel members if there's any excused member absentees from this hearing.
Through the chair, you don't need to do it for the afternoon session.
Okay, thank you. For the afternoon session, are there any declarations of interest of panel or staff for the items in the afternoon?
Through the chair, there are none from staff.
None from the members? Deferral items. Mr. Deputy Secretary Treasurer, have you received any requests for deferral?
Through the chair, we have one deferral request for the afternoon session. It's item number 18, 33 BUDEA CRESCENT. Deferral sine die at the request of the applicant in order to allow an opportunity to address concerns identified by city planning, urban design.
Okay, are there any others, deferral items?
Through the chair, there are none.
Okay, so the first item is item number 18, and we have received a request for deferral. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the deferral for item 18? It's for a deferral only, and it's 33 BUDEA CRESCENT. Anyone in the audience? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, did someone raise their hand? We're just waiting to see whether we have someone who wishes to speak to the deferral. The application is 33 BUDEA CRESCENT to construct a new detached garage in the rear yard. Do you wish to speak to this matter, sir? As a deferral? No? Oh, okay. All right. I have no one else that wishes to speak to the deferral. Is the applicant online? For item 33, BUDEA CRESCENT.
Yeah, this is Mark Donaldson from 33 BUDEA CRESCENT. Good afternoon.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure you were online. You have requested a deferral. What is the wish of the committee? I have a motion for deferral. Mr. Said?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since the applicant have requested the deferral, Madam Chair, I put forward motion for deferral of item 18 to allow an opportunity to the applicant or the agent to address the concern identified by the city planning urban design. And this deferral is sine die.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Chair, I'll second the motion.
Mr. Stinson? All those in favor of a deferral, sine die? The deferral is confirmed. It is unanimous. Okay. Our next item, thank you, sir. Our next item is item 19, 299 Kennedy Road. This is an application to construct a new two-story detached dwelling, and there are 3 variances for this application. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this application for 299 Kennedy Road? No? Okay. Is the applicant online?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
All right. We have no one in the audience who wishes to speak to this. Do we have anyone?
Madam Chair, my name is Dan Achimowicz. I'm the architect and the agent for this file.
Okay, just a minute.
Can you hear me?
sir. Can you hold for a second? I'm just checking to see whether we have anyone else who has registered to speak. No, we don't. So, thank you for giving me that opportunity. Sir, go ahead. I understand you have an amended application to variances 1, 2, and you've eliminated variance number 3. Do you want to?
This is correct.
Okay.
Would you like me to present the file?
Yes, please.
Okay, so just to introduce myself, my name is Dan Achimowicz. I'm the architect and the agent for this file. Good afternoon, everyone.
your
Thanks for taking the
address?
time to.
Sorry.
I'm located at 1185 Queensway East in Mississauga.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to
No
interrupt.
problem. Okay. Yeah, no, that's okay. No problem. Is it possible to share the drawings by the committee so I can kind of walk you through what's transpired here? Or yeah, perfect. Thank you, Eric. So just while this is being opened, just to give you a bit of a background here, this is actually my second time here for the committee for this project. We applied in June 9th for this initial ZAP review. We finally received it on August 7th. Unfortunately, it wasn't like a complete ZAP is what I found out after the fact. And with that information, we applied to the committee of adjustment and were approved initially with the exact same design. Like there was no changes. We didn't make it bigger. We didn't do any of that stuff. And we were approved October 10th for those specific variances listed. Once we applied for the building permit after October, further variances were identified, and those are the 3 that you see here. So it's very unusual situation, not something we typically run into with the City of Toronto. Actually, I'm very happy when I work with the City of Toronto. The planning department is always excellent, and it's always a good experience. Unfortunately, this one kind of didn't work out too well, and unfortunately, here we are again. Because when we did apply for the building permit, these 3 variances were brought up, and I tried to work with the planning department to see if they would support that initial design, just like it was approved the first time. Unfortunately, their feedback came back with basically saying, no, we can't support that exact same design. So since that negative feedback was given, we decided to amend the application and shrink the house to reduce 2 of the variances and eliminate the 3rd one. So if you, Eric, can go back to the site plan for me, please, I would appreciate that. What we did on the bottom, if you will, of this site plan is we pulled the house up by a foot, so pulled it north. Yeah, thank you. So we pushed the house north by a foot, shrank the GFA, and thereby shrank the coverage and also the FSI, right? So 3 of the variances, 1 was FSI, 2 was coverage, and 3 was the distance to the south property line. So by shrinking the house by a foot from the south, we eliminated number 3. And then the other thing that we did is we also got rid of the roof on the back porch. So by eliminating that covered porch, we kept the porch itself, but we eliminated the roof structure itself, which counted towards coverage. Okay, so that's why our application is now amended in front of you. So those three variances are, Eric, if you can go back to, yeah. So those three variances, the FSI has been lowered from 347 to 334. The coverage has been reduced back to 39.2. That coverage was actually approved at the first committee that I came to. And then item 3, because we moved the house by a foot, we eliminated the third variance which dealt with the eve setback from the site yard. Okay, so we thought that that was sort of a really good way not to ruin the house design. You know, it's a little tighter than we had hoped for, but we thought that those moves would be sufficient to gain COA approval today.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe we have a supplementary agenda item that identifies those variances. The one variance for coverage from a change from 4495 to 39.21. You have received approval of that? Are you still seeking approval of that one? I think
I mean, it's listed as, yeah, it's listed as a variance in this list. So I would suggest that we would need approval of number 2, even though it was approved in the old COA. So I'm honestly not sure how that works.
Okay, well, if we're really careful, we can approve it twice. And
Through the chair, the easiest way to explain this is you can't vary a variance. So you all,
true.
yeah.
True. Okay. Okay. Once a variance, always a variance, but it cannot be varied. It's a thing that we
Only
forget.
zoning bylaws can be varied.
Okay. All right. So you have 2 variances. One's for gross floor area at 344 meters squared, and one is for a coverage of 39.21%, and your setback from the eaves has been deleted. There is a comment from Metrolinx, and I believe that's the only comments we have received. And forestry. Okay. Committee. Do I have any comments? Mr. Said.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just seeking a clarity from the applicant. Previously, the variance about the lot coverage was approved, and I'm seeing that variance is coming back again today, the lot coverage, although there is an amendment. After the amendment, you are again asking 39% coverage. So wasn't this approved previously? Because what you were saying, these are in addition, these are the new variances and that. Could you just give me a little bit clarity on that?
You're right. Yeah, the variance, you're right. The variance was approved previously, but we came back with the exact same house, but the coverage was different. Again, the initial ZAP had the coverage at 39.21. I believe the planner did not count the roof on the patio, and I think that was the reason that's why this variance number 2 was raised on us upon submission for permit. So again, we didn't change the design when we applied for permit, but since then we've shrank the house by a foot from the south and eliminated the roof on the canopy or on the back patio, and that brought us back down to exactly 39.21, which was approved in October.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Said.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. Sir, you have to realize, although you have applied for 44.95%, but you have to realize the maximum you are allowed by the zoning bylaws is 33%. It's way high. How can I accept it?
So we're not applying for 44.95, we're applying for 39.21. This is a revised application. And again, that was approved. That exact same number was approved in October for coverage.
Thank you.
So it would be very difficult for me to understand why it would be approved previously and not the second time around.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Do I have any further comments? No? Do I have a motion? Yes, Mr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The application has been amended, and I see the improvements there. Variance number 3 has been taken out. Variance number 2 was already approved previously. So, Madam Chair, I believe these variances are minor, appropriate. Therefore, I put forward motion for approval of item number 19 as amended, subject to the condition, urban forestry condition number 2 and condition number 3 and Metro Lakes condition.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Han.
I second the motion.
Okay. All in favor? That motion is approved unanimously. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you all. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
We're now moving on to item number 20, BRIAR Boulevard. Okay, item 20. It's for a 2-story addition and a rear deck. And it's for an FSI of 6 times versus 5.7 times. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this application on 31 BRIAR Boulevard? No? Okay. Is the applicant online?
Tasneem, you have been unmuted.
Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes. Do you have anything you wish to add to this application?
No. Just that I'm the agent of the owners. Our office address is 911 Davenport Road. The proposal is a 2nd-story addition, and I'm happy to give a presentation if it is required.
Okay, and I see we have 4 letters in support.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Committee, do you have any questions? No? No? Oh. Okay. Do I have a motion? Mr. Zaid.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have only one variance in front of me, and it's minor. Therefore, I move this application be approved.
Okay. Seconder?
I'm
Mr.
happy to
Reed?
second, yeah.
All those in favor? Thank you very much. The application is approved. The vote was unanimous.
Thank you so much.
Application number 21 is for 3115 Markham Road. This is an application to permit a cannabis retail store, whereas a limited number of retail stores are permitted. And that number does not include a cannabis retail store. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to 3115 Markham Road? Yes, would you come down to the... Are you the applicant, sir? Okay. Is there anyone else who in the audience who wishes to speak? No? Okay. All right, sir. You wish to proceed?
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Cook. I am a lawyer at Davies Howe LLP, and I am the counsel to the applicant, Days International.
Can you give us your address?
425 Adelaide Street West.
Thank you. All right, go ahead.
So this is a large commercial plaza at the southeast corner of Markham Road and Select Avenue, which currently contains a Good Life Fitness gym. It's in the area of Markham Road and Steeles Avenue across from the Walmart and Rona store. What we are really dealing with here is a small retail unit within the larger commercial complex, which such unit is proposed to be used as a cannabis store. If you've looked at the architectural drawings submitted with the application, you'll see that there are 4 commercial buildings, each containing a number of units, and the cannabis store is proposed for one of those units in Building C. Now, when applying for a permit for interior alterations to create rooms, install HVAC, plumbing for washrooms, it was noted somewhere in those materials that the proposed use was a cannabis store. The building department flagged this and suggested that a cannabis retail store is not a permitted use under the zoning bylaw. Now, it is true that the Tapscott Employment District zoning bylaw only permits certain enumerated retail uses, and that cannabis is not identified as one of those uses. But this is where it becomes a little more interesting. And I'm going to explain to you why the city cannot, in fact, legally prohibit the proposed use through a zoning bylaw before coming to the 4 tests, which I will address nonetheless. So as I set out in my cover letter, the province of Ontario's licensing and regulatory framework, specifically Section 42 of the Cannabis License Act, does not allow municipalities to pass zoning bylaws that distinguish cannabis retail from other forms of retail. I included with my cover letter a city manager report that recognizes this. So while cannabis is not listed as a permitted form of retail for the subject lands, in these circumstances, it is not, in fact, correct to conclude that it is therefore prohibited. Such a conclusion would mean that the city is, by zoning bylaw, distinguishing cannabis retail from other forms of retail in contravention of the provincial licensing and regulatory framework. Now, it's noteworthy that the zoning bylaw was amended to allow a medical marijuana production facility. Given the age of the bylaw, the concept of selling cannabis from a storefront did not exist at the time of its enactment, and so you won't find the use there. Moreover, as I said, the city cannot add cannabis retail as a permitted use because, in my submission, it would be making that distinction that's prohibited under the Cannabis License Act. However, the bylaw was amended to define a medical marijuana production facility, and pursuant to this amendment, a medical marijuana production facility is a permitted use on the site, which allows that the site be used for growing, producing, testing, destroying, storing, or distribution of medical marijuana or cannabis, if authorized by a license issued by the Federal Minister of Health. Now, it should also be noted that while the site is not yet subject to citywide zoning bylaw 569/2013, that bylaw makes no distinction between the different forms of retail, between any forms of retail, and thus a retail use permitted on the subject lands under 569/2013 would include the proposed use. Now, all that being said, in the interest of time and money, this store was supposed to be operating already. We have agreed to proceed with a minor variance application. We had lengthy discussions with buildings and planning, and notwithstanding planning's support, buildings stuck by their determination that the bylaw does not permit the use, and perhaps based on a purely technical reading of the bylaw, they are correct. But with respect to the 4 tests, they are easily satisfied. The use
Sir,
is
you've got 45 seconds.
The use is permitted under the official plan, plain and simple. Does it meet the general intent and purpose of the bylaw, and is it minor? Yes and yes. The proposed use is not distinguishable from a zoning perspective from a convenience store, a pharmacy, or a health food and nutritional supplement store, all of which are permitted forms of retail. The clientele, the volume of foot traffic and general operations of these uses and the proposed use is similar. And is it desirable and appropriate for the use of the land? Yes. There's also nothing about the proposed use that would be incompatible with other uses in proximity to the site. There are no schools or childcare facilities, for example, nearby, which would in any event be a licensing concern, not a zoning concern. And indeed, the proposed use can satisfy all of the other licensing requirements. So with that, and for those
Sir, could I
reasons,
ask you to,
Scott, I'm sorry?
Can you summarize quickly?
Yes. In my submission, we are here based on a very purely technical reading of the bylaw. The city cannot, in fact, prohibit the use of cannabis on the site, but notwithstanding that, we certainly meet the 4 tests for minor variance.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have any questions of the speaker? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. My question is very simple and I want a very simple answer. Sir, your report that you have submitted to us and before us from How, yes, they have indicated in their report on page 2 and 4 that there are 4 retail stores in the vicinity. Why the 5th one? While the public does not demand more cannabis retail stores for the safety of their kids, and as far as illegal selling is concerned, so in that respect. So what is your thought on that?
Madam Chair, through you, I'm not quite sure I followed the question, but in fact, prior to today, my client did actually share with me an article indicating that there is a desire by the province to see more cannabis retail stores in operation, perhaps exactly for the reason of trying to quash the illegal market that continues to exist.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Michael, for elaboration on that question, which my colleague have asked from you. Actually, yes, I really wanted to be more specific on the location, right? 3115 Markham Road is a big plaza, right? It's a commercial plaza. Are you be able to identify what unit is there? Because I want to look like what are the adjacent properties or the stores. What is the neighborhood? Like you said, there is no childcare, there is no other such facility. But again, and second, my question is this an existing condition? What I am asking you, is this cannabis store is already working there, or you haven't started any groundwork for that because you are looking for this approval before going forward?
Through you, Madam Chair. So this is a large commercial plaza that's under construction. I think construction just recently was completed. I'm not sure when the Good Life Fitness was completed, but that has been there for at least a couple of years. No zoning bylaw amendment or official plan amendment was necessary for the proposed uses. They're building out a retail plaza. And so this is one unit that's proposed to be in this new plaza, so it's not currently in existence. And it wasn't identified as problematic through an application to determine whether or not the use was permitted. This was just flagged by the building department because when it was identified to be a cannabis store on the permit for HVAC and plumbing, it was noted that it was a cannabis store, and the building department said, hey, we've got an issue here. Cannabis retail isn't actually listed as a permitted retail use. And as I've explained, it's not listed as a permitted use because the concept didn't exist when the bylaw was adopted. And moreover, to amend the bylaw to identify the use would be problematic from my perspective, because now you're distinguishing cannabis retail from any other form of retail, which is not permitted under the provincial licensing process.
So do you have the license from the Health Ministry already? You have got that, or you are in process of getting the license?
I might have to defer to my client in the audience. Do you have the license? They've obtained the license.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I understand. We've run into the problems with the zoning bylaw where the bylaw is very specific. And if your use is not listed, whether it's because they don't want it or whether it's because the bylaw is old, you're not on the list, you're not permitted. So I understand why you've got your application before us today. I think just adding that, are there any other questions of the committee? Yes?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation, actually. It was well done, and your argument is quite persuasive. what I'm going to say is this. There's a couple of things I want to ask you about. One is, what is the parking issue from 2019? I'll start with that.
Through you, Madam Chair, I actually wasn't aware of that prior decision until I saw it posted. I think it was to simply provide more parking than is required. So this is the way this plaza is configured. Is a Good Life Fitness, one end. In the middle, there's all this parking, and around the edges are these new retail buildings. And so, as I understand it, although I was not involved at that time, it was just to be able to provide that additional parking, which I mean, I'm going out on a limb here to suggest that it was just reflective of the existing condition and the size of the parking lot.
Through the chair, just based on a quick read of the decision, the intent on this was really there's a limitation on front yard parking. It's more of an urban design kind of issue. It's not about the parking supply. It's about the location of parking within the front yard.
Thank you. And thank you, sir. The other thing I wanted to ask you was, in regards to the point you make about perhaps being in conflict, the bylaw with the provincial legislation, or the federal legislation, actually, in this case, that remains to be seen. Do you have any indication from any of the hearings or any of the things that have happened with this body prior to today that would indicate to you think something like that's happening?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, we did quite a bit of research into the issue. And the only decision that seems to have come before the Committee of Adjustment in the City of Toronto respecting a cannabis store related to the size of the space, not the use.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, what is the wish of the committee? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Listening to the applicant and his point of view about the business, and also having comments from the zoning examiner, City of Toronto. I more agree with the City of Toronto's examiner. Says the City of Toronto zoning examiner observation is correct because proposed use is not included under the applicable zoning bylaw. Davis Howe report on page number 2 shows already 4 cannabis retail operating stores in the area. Then why have so many similar stores in such a small area when agencies have health expert and others do not encourage the youth and illegal selling of marijuana? Public wants the availability of cannabis through a limited licensed stores and outlets, and not so many stores in the small area. Dennis House report on page number 4, in conclusion suggesting satisfying 4 tests, I beg to disagree with the result. The very first test complying zoning bylaw fails. Therefore, I move this application be refused.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Not seeing one, that motion fails. Okay. We're in committee, so I can't ask you any questions, but dealing with cannabis stores in the past, we know that there are some federal regulations. You have to get permits. So I'm just going to throw that out there as a statement. On this application to permit a cannabis store where it is not listed in the retail stores, do I have any further comments? Yes, Mr. Reid.
Thanks, Chair. And with respect to my colleague's position, I'm in support of this application. I think the letter that you put forward is extremely well written, I think, and touches on the main issues and really gets to the point of, I think you're addressing the 4 tests, clearly spelled out why this is an acceptable amendment to consider. I think that this is something that the bylaw doesn't include because it wasn't contemplated at the time, and I think now with provincial legislation, it clearly is. So I think this is a minor variance, and I move approval of the application.
Thank you. I have a move of approval from Mr. Reid. Seconder?
I'll second the motion and just add that the density of any business in our city is not paramount to what it sells, and it happens all the time in our city. So sometimes we can go anywhere and find many Tim Hortons on the same intersection, as an example. So I'm going to second this motion.
Thank you very much. I have a motion from Mr. Reid to approve this application, seconded by Mr. Stinson. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. Your motion is carried. I have the motion is approved by 4 members and refused by Mr. Said.
Through Mr. Khan, opposed,
Yes,
and the motion carries.
the motion carries.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much. Moving on to item number 22, 12 Gilroy Drive. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to item number 22, 12 Gilroy Drive? No? Okay. Okay. Is the applicant online?
Nadeem Irfan, Anaya Architects.
Okay, thank you. There's no one in the audience who wishes to speak to this. I do not have any listing of anyone else. Mr. Irfa, would you proceed to tell us about this application for 12 Gilroy Drive?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have 3 variances. One is the lot coverage, where the permitted lot coverage is 33%, and we are requesting 35.07. We believe it's minor in nature. And then we have a variance of wall height, which is split into 2. I would like the staff to bring up the elevations. I wanted to show the committee members that most of the building is in compliance with the wall height, other than just where we have the windows at the front, rear, and on the side. And we trust this variance is also minor in nature, and we request the committee to consider this for approval. We have 5 support letters submitted in favor of this application.
Thank you very much. Thank you for raising that issue of letters of support. I read those and noted that you've got support letters from both sides of this proposed building, which really does help us in viewing this application. So would staff have pulled up the drawings? Good. Go ahead, Mr. Pham.
Yes, so basically the wall height is in compliance for the most part of the building, other than just where we have the windows. So we have read the forestry conditions, and it's condition number 1, and we acknowledge that. Thank you.
Okay. Any comments from the committee? Mr. Said.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just the comments on this application. It's good that the applicant is acknowledging urban forestry condition. And Madam Chair, it's pretty straightforward application to me with very minor variances. All of them are appropriate, so I am supportive of that.
Okay. Mr. Reid?
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick comment. I wanted to commend the applicant because it's rare that you have a new build that has so few variances in my experience, and it's particularly in regard to length and depth and side yard setbacks. There's no variances being requested, so I think this is a very reasonable and well-designed plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we ready for a motion? Mr. Said?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I put forward motion for approval of item 22, subject to urban forestry condition number 1.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second.
Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Said, is seconded by Mr. Reed, for approval, subject to urban forestry conditions. All those in favor? Thank you. That matter was carried unanimously. All in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 23, 123 Bexhill. I note we are now moving into consent applications and variances. We will consider the consent application and the variances as one application, although effectively they have 3 notes here. On 123 Bexhill Avenue, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address this item? Okay, would you come down and speak to the, come down to the podium? After we've heard from the applicant, we'll ask you to speak, okay?
So I received 12 notifications, so I felt it incumbent on me to come.
Well, we don't give you 12 times 5 minutes, but we will give you 5 minutes.
Well, I was counting on the 12 times 5, but
Okay,
I'll
let
abridge,
me-
I'll abridge what I have to say.
Okay,
This
sir,
is the-
sir,
Yes,
first we have to hear from the applicant,
okay,
okay?
yep.
All right. It's a consent and 2 variances. The lot frontage, proposed lot frontage is 7.62 meters, depth of 31 meters, and the area is 241.5 or 241.4 square meters. The variance, there are 7 variances: frontage, area, coverage, and length and depth. This is also have a report from development engineering regarding their conditions. So before we proceed to hear from anyone else, would the applicant like to give us a short presentation?
Good afternoon, committee. My name is Peter Druzik. I'm with Arc Design Group Development Services, Inc. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
This application before you for Bexhill Avenue is in a neighborhood that has experienced a lot of transition over the last 5 to 10 years. These type of applications in this neighborhood, in this zoning area, have been several. Even myself, I've presented many to you. The application before you takes a 50-foot lot, which we divide, a 12-meter lot, which we divide into 7.62 lots. Up and down Bexhill and directly behind us as well, these lots in the same zone have already been divided up in the past. We've tried to adhere to as many zoning provisions as possible and maintaining frontage, a front yard setback, rear yard setback. We're requesting a little bit on the side yard. That's just to give a little bit more room in terms of garage to foyer entrance for that. We believe that the depth of an extra 2 feet is minor in nature, and the wall heights that we're requesting for main wall heights of 36 centimeters is just to accommodate some architectural details in the house, which allows for a little bit of an architectural character, but it's not large in respect to the requirement of 7 meters to 7.36. The lots themselves have variances just to make it comply with the current bylaw, which is minimum 12 meters in that. But as I mentioned to you before, up and down these streets over the last 5-10 years, lots have been severed with these same variances. Directly behind us on Pharmacy at 174 and 580. Up and down Bexhill on our side, 61, 59, 131 have all been severed, as well as Westburn, the street just across after us. Several on the same side of the street. We have very similar 138, 140, 142. they're all encompassing the same neighborhood and the same zoning. And these type of applications have been before the committee many times. What we're doing here is nothing out of the norm that has been done in the last 5 years in the past. And we just presenting this to the committee. As you know, that we do have an issue with housing in the municipality, with throughout Ontario actually. And this would help deal with some of the pressures of housing in the city of Toronto. We have access to TTC on St. Clair, and to the south of us is the Victoria Park subway. So intensification in a neighborhood like this, close to TTC and transit, is very beneficial and overall provides for good housing in an impactful area in the city of Toronto.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the applicant at this point? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, my question is very simple, and it's about variance number 2, 3, and 4. I find variance number 2, 130 meters less. Variance number 3, 4.38 meters less. And number 4, your coverage is 28% more than allowable, maximum allowable. How do you justify?
In terms of the variances for lot frontage and lot areas, these, I agree that they are from 12-meter requirement to 7.62, that based on the bylaw adopted at that time, those were done more of a blanket type of situation. These severances of 50-foot lots severed down to 12-meter lots to 7.62 throughout this whole neighborhood have been before the Committee of Adjustment many times. At the beginning, some of them were appealed to the Ontario Municipal Board and overturned by the denied and taken to the Ontario Municipal Board and overturned as saying that this is an acceptable severance. So, and the committee itself, about 4 or 5 years ago, said we had a hard time starting to deny these, as the T-Lab or an OMB and the T-Lab, OMB back in the past and T-Lab now, were overturning the decision saying that this does meet the 4 tests and is good planning practices in this area. So the T-Lab and OMB have overturned decisions, both denials and approvals for these type of lots. So it's been through the tests of both committee and OMB, and they have determined in at least 10 cases in this neighborhood in particular. I've been a part of some, and I've been observant on other ones, that they have been upheld by the upper appeals court that these meet the 4 tests. So in terms of the lot areas, they meet the 4 tests, both at the committee and at the appeal courts. In terms of the areas, the coverage, same issues. A lot of these lots were within the 41 to 47% range of coverage. And because we're not asking for frontage as front yard setbacks or rear yard setbacks, just a little bit of on the width, that the massing of it does align. If you look on the site plan itself and look at the house to the south of us, it's almost as deep as our property as well in terms of the depth of the house. So a lot of those, the houses in the area are adhering to these depths of property, depths of houses. So with that being said, the numbers are larger because we're making the lots smaller, but it has upheld the tests, the 4 tests, both at the committee and at the appeal bodies.
Thank you. Mr. Said?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Mr. Peter, thank you for your elaboration. As Mr. Khan asked you the question, and you elaborated on that, earlier in your presentation, you gave certain numbers of similar lots in the vicinity, but could you please just repeat that? I could not catch you at that moment. But that should be the lot studies in this 123 BEXHIL Avenue. about the, particularly about the frontage kind of a thing. And my second concern was again the same. Obviously you are creating short lots, and on top of that you are, the lot coverage you are exceeding many times more as allowed there. So ultimately and subsequently what the impact will be, it will be a short lot and overdevelopment in that short lot. I'm looking at this street view right now, and if you, maybe I may be looking at it wrong, but there is newly built house next to the property and that have a bigger frontage. And I don't see immediate neighbor's house where the lot frontage is 7.62 that you are proposing.
Directly behind us, through you, Chair, is 557 Pharmacy, and those are under construction, and 582 Pharmacy, same zoning, same neighborhood. They're actually backing onto our backyards, and those were 7.62 and 7.59 lots directly behind us. The house beside us, yes, it was the owner of that property did want to build himself a larger property house and built that. But directly in the vicinity of ours, which is the backing fence, is 174. On Google Street View, you'll see it under construction. If you look at the planning documents, the city planning documents, it is there under, it went through committee as well for those ones. The street over, just a street over as well, Westburn, 138 was approved by committee, 140, 142, 149A Westburn is, and also on Bexhill, 142 and 142B. These are all 50-foot lots originally, which were the wartime bungalows, and they are now severed into 25-foot lots. That's just within walking distance, and going up and down Bexhill, when you just pass the park area, several more lots. You have 61, 59, 68, 131 Bexhill, which all went through committee and were 50-foot lots severed into 25-foot lots. Many more on Westburn, Mayborn, Pitt. This is one neighborhood and all the same zone.
Thank you, Mr. Peter. And what's the existing frontage of this lot?
The existing frontage of this lot is 12.19.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before you, yes, go ahead, Mr. Stinson.
Thank you, Chair. Peter, can you please tell me what your understanding is of the forestry conditions?
I have to pull those up again. Just give me a second here. Besides payment of trees, that's very standard note that if there's no trees on the boulevard, when two lots are created, we have to pay for 2 trees. So there'll be 1 tree planted in front of each property. That's condition number 3 listed. Condition number 2 is to apply, which is these are both standard conditions, which I think you guys apply to almost every C of A application out there, to apply for an injury to remove to injure trees, and also to pay for city trees on the property if there is none there. I don't quite recall on this one if there was a tree in front, but that could always be. But sometimes there's a tree, sometimes not. But worst case, we pay for 2 trees for the city property boulevard.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I wanted to make a comment here. This applicant has been before us a number of times. He has done some development on Bexhill Avenue. It would be very helpful, sir, if you could provide us with a map, not just provide us with a listing of numbers of addresses, but a map showing where there are other lots of the same size as you're being proposed. I know other applicants have done this. It assists us in reviewing the application. So if you're coming back to us, and I expect you probably are for applications in this area, please bear that in mind.
Right.
Is there,
I agree with that. If I can just note here, I do note I noticed that the coverage, the lots have been severed in several instances. The lot coverage is a little bit higher here, and with the building depth and the coverage, I'm sure my client would be fine for us to revise those and to make it more in line with the committee. So with the 17.7 meter depth, I'm sure we can revise that to comply and the coverage. So if it would be interested in the committee, I'm fine to defer this and modify it in the interests of working with the committee and the city further to try to minimize the coverage even further and reduce the building length variance.
okay, thank you. Before we discuss that, we have a gentleman who wishes to speak to this matter. We need to hear from him. Would you give me your name and address, please, sir?
Yeah. My name is George Morrison. I live at 130 Bexhill Avenue, neighboring what was Tony and Franca's house at 123 Bexhill. A family that lived there for over 40 years, raised a family there, and with whom I attended a meeting of adjustment in this chamber as the second time I'd been to a Committee of Adjustment meeting to oppose the severance of the lot south of 123 Bexhill, which was eventually declined. And he built a beautiful home across from the park. And I'm here to appear not so much to give you numbers and technical information about this proposal, but perhaps to describe the character of this neighborhood. This gentleman seems to come in and have nothing but redevelopment on his mind, where this neighborhood was a good mix of houses and bungalows built after the war by returning soldiers. One of the neighbors to 123 was a D-Day veteran. There was another Dieppe prisoner in this neighborhood, and yet another D-Day veteran who lives at the corner of Bexhill and Bolster. So one of the iconic buildings in this neighborhood was torn down last week to build a house. I don't know if the lot was severed. It was built by a Jehovah's Witness, and as with all other houses in this neighborhood, it was a hodgepodge of design. He had turrets, he had statues of David or imitation statues of David. It was an eclectic mix of architecture and Western civilization, themes of Western civilization. Throughout this neighborhood, there was people built according to their means at the time. Now it's a cookie cutter design, and throughout up and down the street. Sometimes I'm not aware of what goes on at the bottom of Bexhill, over the hill. I don't go down there all the time. But again, the last time I was here with Tony and Franca, it was to oppose the building immediately south, the neighbor of this house. And this is a beautiful house, marble, hardwood floors. No reason to destroy it.
Okay, thank you, sir. The house that you're talking about that's beside this one, the beautiful house, is that 121?
Yes.
Okay.
He originally tried, he's a real estate man, and he originally tried to sever the lot and build two, but all the neighbors came and opposed that, and it was turned down, and I suppose he decided to build a house and family home and raise his family there. It's a nice neighborhood, attractive neighborhood.
Yes, it is. We're fairly familiar with this neighborhood. Not only have we had a number of applications, but we've also been out there taking a look at what is happening in the neighborhood. And so it's, as you say, it's a very eclectic neighborhood.
Well, it has been in the past. It's unfortunately being changed rapidly by applications of this sort. So I urge you to turn this application down. And perhaps a good family will come in, live in this house again.
Okay, yes, sure.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for taking the time to speak to us today.
Well, I've lived there in 70 years. I've lived in that home. It was built by my father, who was a soldier who returned from World War II. When they passed away, I took over the house, and
So I appreciate that. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to try to answer it if you can. With this street being so eclectic, and the fact that there's a lot of different sized homes, some small that were from the war, as you said so eloquently, and some that are quite large and significant in terms of volume and design, what makes the severance of this lot so offensive or so concerning to you is probably a better word.
what makes it so concerning to me? It changes the neighborhood. I'm not opposed to renewal, but the architectural design of all these homes, as the gentleman who spoke before me spoke of houses being developed all the way down BEXHILL. Yeah, and they're much the same. And that eclectic nature has disappeared. They're cookie-cutter homes. There used to be starter homes, smaller homes that would have maybe had one bedroom, one kitchen, and that was it. I could still point it out to you. It's in the next block down. I suppose having lived there for 70 years, to some extent you become a little bit conservative in your views. But I'm not opposed to redevelopment, but I am opposed to the change in character of this proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, back to the applicant. You have 5 minutes to comment.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, this area is in transition. What was approved in the past, or what the neighborhood was in past, this is not a static neighborhood. It's a dynamic neighborhood. It's a neighborhood where young families want to move into and are looking for new needs today. I do know the house next to us.
Through the chair, excuse me.
I'm
There's
sorry.
there's another speaker.
Yes, I've just noticed that we have another speaker. So, sir,
Okay.
can you just hold that? We need to go. Actually, I have a listing of 2 additional speakers.
No, just through the chair, just one.
Which one?
Amy
Ward.
Amy Ward. Okay. Is Amy Ward online?
Amy, I've unmuted you.
Hello.
Yes, Amy, I apologize. I didn't recognize that we had a person online who wants to speak to this as well. So,
Oh,
please,
no problem at all.
please go ahead.
In fact, thank you so much. In fact, George Morrison had said most and far beyond what I had hoped to hear today as well. I think we all know that just because something has been done in a neighborhood before does not equate it to being immediately right. As George has said, there is a lot of character in this neighborhood, and as we're not opposed to renewal, perhaps opposed to the design. I currently live to the north of this property and believe, based on the plans, that the main draw of where my house situates, having a full view of the park where I enjoy many walks with my dog, as well as meeting other folks in the neighborhood to enjoy that space, would be severely impacted. Currently have a nice view of that, and I believe that it would be completely eradicated with this plan.
Okay, thank you. I believe you are at 125 Bexhill. Is that correct?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. I apologize again for not recognizing that you're online. Anyone else online? Oh, okay. Okay. Peter, we're back to you. Do you
Thank
want
you.
to start over, and we'll give you your full 5 minutes from when you speak?
No problem. No problem. I guess I'm going to go reverse now because it's fresher in our minds right now. In terms of right to view, the houses that we're developing here is no further ahead than the existing houses there right now, and it's lined up with the front wall of 125. So in terms of the front elevations, the front yard remains. Our house is not coming in front of the 125 house for obstructing any views of that nature. So I don't think there's a concern there. In terms of design, if it's going to be two houses of a similar design, or if it's going to be one house that comes in here similar to the neighboring house at 121 that's been rebuilt and designed in a certain style, there is change coming in this area, and especially on this lot, as today it's a single bungalow, and people are purchasing these properties to build something for their current families. And we're looking at multi-generational houses are becoming more popular in Toronto as people cannot afford too much. So they have grandparents living with them and parents living with them. And there's a need for more houses. The 121, yes, they did apply for a severance over 11 years ago. And at that time, severances, the planning climate was different. The requirements of the city, the official plan was different. The zoning bylaw was different. There were so many other aspects on why that one was not allowed to be severed 11 years ago. That was April of 2013, I believe it was. So here we are in 2024, 11 years later, and these neighborhoods have been changing. Now, I do note the concern of the committee in terms of coverage, and I believe I can speak to my client and try to eliminate some of these variances and work with a lot of it better to make it more in line with the existing zoning bylaws in terms of setbacks and coverages and that, and building depth. So that's why I still stand at this point, hearing from the committee. I would request deferral to go back to my client and see if we can prepare a plan that's more conducive and eliminates more variances here, which I think might be a better way of going about this.
Okay, thank you. All right, so you are requesting a deferral to refine your application, perhaps bring it more in keeping with what is happening in the area. What is the wish of the committee?
I would be in favor of a deferral, Chair, and I think it would be a good idea. And I want to thank Peter for the suggestion.
Okay. Okay, I have Mr. Stinson and Mr. Arnott who have agreed to a deferral. Peter, yes, we agree to a deferral. When you come back, as no doubt you will, if you could bring us a little bit of further information of other lots in that area, that would help your case.
Yeah.
And with that, I have a motion for deferral. All those in favor of the deferral?
Through the chair, just for the record, who moved it and who seconded it?
Sorry.
I second the motion.
Mr. Stinson moved it, Mr. Khan seconded it. And it was agreed unanimously to agree to the deferral. The gentleman in the audience and those online, when the application comes back, if it does, you will be notified again. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
So we're now moving to item number 24, 2 EMMELINE Crescent. Okay, I have the agent listed. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to 2 EMMELINE Crescent? Not seeing anyone. Is the agent online?
Andrew Banoff, the agent for the owner.
Okay. The application for consent and 2 variances. There are a number of items listed here. Community planning have recommended that if approved, that we add a condition that it be built in accordance with the plans as submitted. And we have a letter of objection from the owner of 26 Schollard, who's the property to the south of you. Okay. We'll deal with the consent and the 5 variances. Do you wish to make a presentation?
Yes, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. This is an application for a lot severance to maintain an existing home on the property and to build a new 2-story home on the severed piece. This is an application which we've worked with planning and building quite a bit of time to kind of clarify what the variances are. It is a corner lot, so frontages are taken. When you sever a piece off the back, the lot on the behind becomes the frontage, becomes a side lot and such. What the variances for the existing home are based on existing conditions. But the severance itself, we have a lot frontage variance for let me just see quickly for part 1. For part 1, the lot frontage requirement is 21.82 and the proposed is 17 meters. For part 2, the lot frontage requirement is 21.82 meters and the proposed is 18.29. We did include a map showing lot frontages in the area in the same zone, and there are several lots that fall within the 17 to 18 meter. It's the other map, but there's one more map we included. If you can put that up, there's another map there. Yeah, that one there. So the yellow represents lots which fall within the lot frontages that we are providing here. Again, it's a corner lot. The planning reviewed this, and we did work with them to adjust some of the items related to coverage, density, and our proposed new home does not have any additional variances other than a front yard setback variance. But there's no side yard or other setbacks that are created as a result of it. This is why I believe planning has no concerns with regards to it, other than to tie it to the site plan. Transportation and Works Department also is conditionally approved based on conditions that they've brought forward, and Forestry's also asked for a couple of applications, a tree planting and a potential injury application. So we've reviewed the changes that have gone on in the area here. We looked at the lot sizes. The neighbor immediately, number 26, who wrote the letter in, if you zoom in on the map there, you can see that if you go down, the 2 lots just behind the green is our site. It's not a huge difference between the lot sizes that would be created versus what is occurring just to the next door and behind. So I feel that this application is minor in nature and does meet the 4 tests. There's no height variances. We are compliant in as many ways as possible, and that's through a lot of work on our part to ensure that we minimize what we were asking for. And I'll leave it for you for questions.
Okay, thank you. Before I open up to others, the variances, by creating this new lot and keeping the existing lot on number 2, do you need a rear yard variance? Because your frontage now is on Scarborough.
Yes, so the house which is being maintained, part 1, has a rear yard setback variance of 1.29 meters. But if you look at the site plan, we did create tableland, enough space at the rear. So the rear is it's not really the rear. There is space behind, amenity space behind the lot between the home, and that's really the rear, but technically that's considered the side. The short side is considered the front. So because it's now the front is considered the short side, the side yard is considered the rear yard. So it's a technical variation where it's called rear yard, but there is a new rear yard which is between the homes.
And that's a very small rear yard. If I look at the existing house, which has a brick garage adjacent to the number 4. So
well, it's a narrow, but it's a very wide space. And again, when we talked to the city planning, they were satisfied would meet the requirements for them.
okay, I'm just asking so that I have some understanding. I didn't understand that you were keeping the existing house and that some of the variances deal with the relotting because of keeping the existing house.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Stinson, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Rubinoff, while we at this committee are not bound by comments, we do take them seriously when they come from the city. Are you aware that there's 23 advisory comments from engineering and construction services?
Yes, I am. And those are items which are really just conditions to confirm that we maintain and restore curbs and that we maintain the standards. I don't find any of the comments to be unreasonable. It's fairly, they do provide several lists, but they did not have any, it was a conditional, but they were not opposed to it through their comments.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. What I'm getting at is it's more than just curbs. Is there anything on that list that you object to or your client does?
There's a lot of stuff that's related to, I believe, the stop sign, relocation, the fire access route must be provided. So there's a lot of process involved just to confirm that things will be satisfactory to them. Repairs of utilities, sidewalks, the utility setbacks. Yeah, a lot of it has to do with utilities. I'm finding that we work with Works Department. That's just part of the process.
Okay, Mr. Rubinoff, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure you're aware of that because usually in my short period of time here, I haven't seen 23 comments like that. So you've answered. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, Mr. Seed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The applicant have provided good information as far as the frontage is concerned, and I can see that there are many other bungalows or dwellings in the street with the same frontage. My concern is about the lot area, and I would like the applicant to tell me, is there do you have any study on the lot area? Because I believe your lot area in part one is 565 square meter, whereas the requirement is more than 1,000 square meter. And same with the part two, where it's 469, even less than the first one. So how would you compare this lot area, or could you give me an examples if there are any other lots which are smaller than this or at least equal to this?
Thank you for your question. We did look at the the lots to the adjacent number 26 and 52 onto Stainforth. Those lots there's a lot of lots in this area that do not comply in lot area. That's what the lot requirements. I believe the proposed lots are not that different from many of the lots in the area. It's not like everyone complies and we're creating something which is significantly different. There's a variety of lot shapes on EMMELINE Crescent. If you go around the corner, you'll see a lot of narrow frontage lots, and that results in a lot area which is quite a bit lower. So I can't speak specifically to other lot sizes in the area. Mostly what I focused on was the frontage, and also just speaking with planning. Planning did not comment on that particular aspect. I think they were more concerned about the lot frontage, to be honest.
Yeah, thank you very much. I looked into both 2652. I don't think they are smaller than this lot. Apparently, I don't have the measurement, but they are bigger than this. So, Madam Chair, I have my concern that this severance is going to create lots which are deficient as far as the lot area is concerned, and I don't see there is any other lots unless the applicant give me or provide me a data on that of the same size. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Khan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I just like to ask one simple question in 24B. So your variance number 3 is 1.29 meters. That is the rear yard setback, as against 7.5. It's very low. Any comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Khan. Through you, Chair. That was a question that you brought up earlier about the setbacks in which the lot configuration is considering that as a rear yard setback when it's an existing condition, but it's not. There's still a rear yard. There's still a space between the homes. It's not. That's not representative of a rear yard. It's a technical rear yard because of what they call front yard. Because of the narrow side is the front yard. The rear yard falls into that category, but the side yard is quite generous beyond what our side yard requirement would be. So it's just a factor of it's a technical, because it's a corner lot and it's creating another lot. It's turning the head on the existing house, and suddenly there's a rear yard setback where really it's representing a side yard.
Mr. Singh.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick question to the applicant. You're over a bit on coverage, and I just, in order to kind of improve that situation, would you be open to, if this were to be approved, to constructing the driveway with water permeable paving instead of asphalt?
Yes, Mr. Reed, absolutely. That's something that I always bring up with my clients, because I know that the city is oversaturated, and anytime we can provide alternatives to deal with drainage, we absolutely will agree to that.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Any other comments? No? Okay, are we ready to take this into committee? Okay. Before we before I ask committee members for their comments, I have a comment. And I guess it arises from the plan where we're showing the lotting on Emmanuel Crescent and on Scotland Boulevard. Staff, can you bring that plan up? I don't know the number. It's the plan that shows the new builds.
The map, I imagine.
Yeah. Yes, that's the plan. Okay, thank you. I'm looking at this plan. Thank you very much to the applicant who has provided it. And I look at the number of new builds in the area. And there obviously is a lot of new development in the area. That's generally desirable that we've got redevelopment. But the other thing I have noticed is that there is virtually no severances. On Emmanuel, all the existing lots are the same size. On Scotland Road, all the existing lots are the same size. So that what the proposal is to create a new lot somewhat similar to number 26 Scotland that interrupts that pattern of existing lots and houses where there's new builds. So obviously there is a desire for some of these larger lots, larger houses, and yet that's not what we have before us. And so I'm questioning whether this is appropriate, that it will set a standard for other lots where they're starting to look at corner lots and carve out a little bit more, divide the lot in half wherever they can. I'm not convinced that that is desirable in this area where the existing lots, yes, large, are being rebuilt. And there are parts of the municipality where we want to maintain existing large lots and rebuild large lots for those people that want to keep it. So I'm looking at this plan and I have some concerns with the variances in front of us and the consents in front of us. Do I have any comments? Mr. Reid.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee Member Reid. I share your concern, and I'm vacillating on this decision, so I'm waiting to hear from the other members, but I have some concerns for size.
Okay. Mr. Reid?
Thanks, Chair. I don't have many concerns with this. I was actually surprised at the variances at the fact that the variances were as small as they are, given it is an aggressive proposal in terms of fitting a second house onto that lot. But I was actually impressed that the variances being requested are, in my opinion, relatively minor. I look at I think this is an interesting area of the city in that there are very different sizes of lots and different orientations of lots, and not necessarily as small as this, apart from the two lots immediately south. But there is a very big range of lot size and lot orientation, and I think adding another house here, from my perspective, makes sense from a kind of gentle intensification of established neighborhoods. So I'm going to be supporting it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Said?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the concern about the consent part of the application. Madam Chair, as you pointed out that, yes, there has been new builds there, but the lots have not been divided. So if we are going to approve, or the committee, should the committee consider like approve the consent application, I feel that it's going to, you are right, it's not going to fit into the pattern which this this area have. There are big bungalows and beautiful houses, and especially the corner lot, this area is, yeah, so I have, even not looking into the minor variance application, that's the second part, but I'm saying that the consent application is creating two lots which are inappropriate in their sizes. Yeah.
Any other comments? No? Okay. I'm ready for a motion. Mr. Said.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we discussed about the different concerns, and my concern was about the sizes, which is not appropriate. So therefore, Madam Chair, I put forward motion for refusal of the consent application. And of course, then minor variance application is not going to be considered.
Okay. I have a, yes, sir.
Second the motion for refusal.
Okay, I have.
Through the chair, can you please speak through your microphone so the members of the public can hear?
Thank you, sir. I second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion for refusal of the consent application by Mr. Stade, a second by Mr. Han. All those in favor of the refusal? All those opposed to the refusal, I guess?
Opposed.
Okay. Mr. Reed is opposed to refusal. There are 4 who agree with the refusal. Sir, your application for consent has been refused, and that automatically means that your variance applications are also refused, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you. We're moving on to the last item on the agenda. This is 30 Gilder Drive. I have 2 people that have come to the podium. Are you the applicant, sir?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Okay. Let me introduce 30 Gilder Drive. Is a severance to create 2 lots, one of which will continue to contain the existing apartment building, and a second one which will create a new apartment building. We also have a number of zoning bylaws, a number of variances to permit a 27-story apartment building on the western portion of the lot and to maintain the existing 14-story apartment building. I don't have anyone else who wishes to speak on this matter. Okay, sir, go ahead.
Good afternoon, members of the committee, Madam Chair. My name is David Mackay. I'm a registered professional planner with MHBC, representing the applicants. Because I've only got 5 minutes, I'll be very quick on these items. This proposal was approved by council in 2022 for the 25-story building on the west side of the property. Through the work we've done with planning department, including as well as urban forestry and engineering, through the site plan approval process, it has necessitated some changes to the built form, and those primarily relate to the setbacks that are being requested. And those are variances 7, 8, 9, 16, 17, and 18. Some of those are repeated because there are 2 bylaws, the old bylaw and the new bylaw. And we've also worked with the councillor's office on this proposal. Before I continue on, I would like to say that variances 13 and 14, we are withdrawing. We do not require those anymore. Those deal with the accessible parking spaces. So I will not speak to those items. We've addressed those through site plan revisions to the parking garage. In terms of the tranches of variances, as I said, there's the setbacks that are related to tweaks in the building design. And unfortunately, when we drafted the bylaw, it was very specific in terms of a height and setback map. And that creates a very tight envelope for us. And so we are looking at tweaks between 0.1 to up to 1 meter in terms of the variances based on the building design. Relative to the height and I think the unit increase, those really deal with our ability to provide additional housing. This project is slated for a rental building with 58 affordable housing units that have been approved by council, the Housing Secretariat, and through federal grants, with the potential to increase that number subject to additional federal financing, which is related to the size of the building and the number of units that we're requesting today. So there is very much a public good related to that matter. Relative to the parking variance, as you know, one portion of affordability is that parking, providing excess parking, creates a significant cost barrier to entry. And so we've worked through the design of the parking garage with transportation engineering, as well as our engineers, to come up with an appropriate ratio, and that's the reduction that we're seeking as part of the parking variance. And as you can tell by the comments, engineering, planning, and urban forestry, none of them have any concerns with the variances proposed. One item that I'm going to bring up specifically is variance 11. And I think if the committee looks at that, it's a requirement for 67 square meters, and we're reducing down to just over 22 square meters of lot area for each dwelling unit. And really, I got to say that that's a technical variance because the number of units that were previously approved by council as a site-specific amendment would allow for those units to occur. And so that would bring the number actually down to 27. Because we're touching the number of units, we have to go back to, based on the zoning review examinations review, we have to go back to the parent bylaw that says the 67 units per hectare or per square meters is required. So that's why we're varying that. So the actual technical variance is from 27 square meters down to just over 22 square meters through the council approval. So I just wanted to clarify that specific item because it seems to be a large number unto itself. And again, as I said, the majority of the variances, again, relate to that increase in height and to allow for additional rental housing units and the potential for additional affordable housing units to be created. And at the end of the day, the differential between 25 and 27, from a planning perspective and a design perspective, we've worked with staff and they feel that that has been appropriately addressed and does not create any additional undue impacts above the 25-story approval that was previously granted. So with that, I have 30 seconds, and I apologize if I've gone quickly, and I'd be happy to answer questions that committee may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Stinson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. How many units approximately for this new build?
So the total number of units will be, in the new building, will be 341. So an increase from 263 to 341. And the overall part with the existing building will be 455 overall.
Thank you.
And sorry, just to clarify, for the severance, because I didn't talk about that, is really to create the financing mechanism to create the construction for the site. It will continue to function as one property, both from zoning perspective as well as interrelationally with the parking and accessibility. Thought I'd tack that on.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, my question to the applicant is variance number 5.
Yes.
You are asking 27 stories instead of 25. Variance number 2, you are asking more units than allowable, causing a problem to variance number 3 and 4, which is the height of the building itself. Sir, if you stick to the limit of 25, you will comply all these things.
If we stick to the 25 stories, yes, in terms of the height permissions or requirements, but then we wouldn't be able to provide the additional, as many of the additional units that are proposed in the building. So there's a relationship to providing for those additional rental housing units and affordable housing units. That increase relates to, as I mentioned, primarily to, again, the height increase of 2 stories, as well as some internal changes. We did find efficiencies in the building. So it's not completely related to the total number of units, but it is a good portion of that. So you'd be taking away affordable housing units and rental housing units in a housing crisis if the variances weren't permitted.
Sir, Madam, if you allow me to...
The second one?
Thank you kindly, Madam, through you again. Sir, my question is about parking.
Yes.
Variance number 13, they are asking 9 parking spaces and you're providing 6. Variance number 12, distance from the main wall should be 3 feet and you're providing 2 meters. Instead of 3 meters, you're providing 2 meters. It's very close.
Yep.
Variance number 10, you did not explain the parking of 231 residents and 31 for visitors. 14, accessible parking, not all close. Explain, please.
So as I mentioned, and perhaps you didn't catch it, we removed variances 13 and 14. So we were able to tweak the underground parking garage to address those variances that were identified by the zoning examiner. So I'm not seeking 13 or 14. Regarding variance 12, and perhaps staff can zoom in on the site plan, if that's possible.
Sir, if I may interject, 14 is about the accessible parking, so it's a little different.
Yes, provision 13 was a reduction from 9 to 6. We're not seeking that variance any longer. So we're providing 9 accessible parking spots in the revised design. With regards to 14, it again deals with the location of the accessible parking spaces, and we were able to adjust the underground parking garage to address that zoning comment, and therefore we're not seeking that variance. So with regards to number 12, if staff can go to the site plan, there are 5 parking spaces, convenience parking spaces located at grade, and through the design of the building, you can see, can zoom in just on the right side of the building. You can see the parking spaces, it's the parking spaces on the new building, so the dark gray. So there's 5 parking spaces there. What we're talking about is because we are adjusting the building design, we lost a meter between the front face of the building at grade to where those parking spaces start. So that's the variance that we're requesting. So it's a reduction from 3 meters down to 2, but it still provides for sufficient walkway to occur along the front face of the building. So that's the variance that we're requesting, and we believe that it does meet the intent of providing for a clear way for pedestrian movement. Relative to your question on the visitor parking, or the overall parking request, under the bylaw today, we need 320 parking stalls based on the ratios provided. The total number, as you can add up, 231 plus 31, reduces that down to 262 parking spaces. Through the site plan process, we've worked through staff, transportation staff, to justify the reduction in parking. That's why they don't have any concerns with it. And what it does is that allows us to remove another level of underground parking and therefore allow for more affordability in both the rental units as well as the affordable units for this project, which is in close proximity to transit, including the GO station and the future LRT extension along Eglinton. So we feel it's variance, it's very minor in nature. It meets the intent of the provision to provide appropriate parking. And as noted, probably many times to committee, the new bylaw today does not require any parking other than visitor. And so we're providing what we think is appropriate, and staff agree with us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Said?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, many of my questions have already been asked, and you answered those questions. But still, I was just wondering about the impact of these variances. You can say directly those are not the variances there, but the impact could be there. For example, variance number 11, where the lot area per unit has been tremendously decreased. And you try to explain that it's not 22 square meter, but could be 27 or technical or whatever. But again, it's very much tremendously decreased, right? And I was thinking like how it's going to impact the living standard there, or the, still you have to explain like what is the, is every unit, what kind of units these are, like 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom? Do you have any breakup of that? And how you further elaborate? I will need further clarity on variance number 1, where either it is 22 square meter or 27 square meters.
Sure. So on variance 11, so the parent bylaw, it carried forward the old provisions from the Scarborough standard of providing for a certain lot area. So that created the towers in the park. That this original proposal, the original building that sits there today, 14-story building, was built upon. And really what that was intended for was to provide for amenity space on the site. The new bylaw, as well as the new proposal, incorporates, uses some of that amenity space, and that's been approved by council. Like the built form and the placement generally has been approved for this proposal. The variance is created because of the additional units we're creating. It triggers that revision to the parent bylaw. As part of this the process with staff, we have incorporated a number of unit sizes, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, and we've provided for, unlike the original Scarborough bylaws, amenity space within the building, both indoor and outdoor, and we've upgraded through the site plan process the green space, which was primarily grassed area. We've incorporated additional design elements to facilitate a better amenity treatment for those areas, both for the new residents, but also the existing residents. So in our opinion, the overall intent is to provide for a good quality green space, and that is being provided for, and amenity space within the building is being provided for. So that's why we believe that variance is appropriate. You'd mentioned variance 1, and that relates again to the increase in the height as well as the design of the building to increase the gross floor area of the building from 19,200 square meters to 19,423 square meters. So that is primarily related to the increased height and the additional floor area that's created by the request.
And the amenity space which you have provided outside green areas, is this both for the existing building, which have 192 dwelling unit, and this new one, 341? So they are sharing the amenity spaces?
Yes. Yes. So one of the provisions that we worked with the councillor on was for like the outdoor amenity space is going to be shared. There are easements being requested for the sharing of the facilities. But specifically, Councillor Thompson wanted the sharing of the indoor amenity space, the new amenity space, to be provided for and shared with the existing tenants. And that is a requirement of our site plan approval that we're currently finalizing with staff.
Is there bicycle parking there in the buildings?
There's no variance to bicycle parking,
yes,
but we do have a significant amount of bicycle
but
parking.
Since you are talking about the subsidized, and there are 56 units there, right? Which are
58.
58.
That are 58 that have been approved to date in terms of funding mechanism, and we're seeking an additional 22 through federal funding, subject to the approvals being granted.
So there is no bicycle parking, although there is no variance. I do understand.
There is bicycle parking as part of that meets the bylaw requirements provide for the site.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, madam. I would like to ask for my own information, Secretary Gerard, to guide me. Sir, do we need transportation services report for variance number 10, and 13.
Through the chair, if transportation has circulated the agenda, and if they wish to comment, they would provide conditions. In this case, they did not provide a report, meaning, which I assume they don't have any issues with this application.
Thank you, sir.
Furthermore, this is going through a site plan approval process, and I'm sure that they have been commenting through that process. You can confirm that with the applicant.
Yes, I can confirm that they've dealt with it. And actually, the engineering comments that were provided on the consent do speak to transportation matters as conditions of approval. A number of them now don't relate because of the accessible parking variances that we've removed, but they did look at that as part of their commentary through ECS, engineering services. So.
Okay, sir, I have a question for you. It's really dealing with, I guess, the consent application. Who owns this building? Who owns the existing building?
So the owner is Michael Langer.
And
Hamel Inc. is the company name.
okay, and he owns all the land.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So the consent application is to divide the property. I think you said it's divide the property probably for mortgage purposes. Is that what you were saying?
Effectively, what it does is it creates the lot in two so that mortgages and financing can be applied to the new construction area, separate from the apartment.
Okay. So both properties will end up being in the same ownership, but may have different mortgages. It's,
and different corporate structure in terms of the
different
partnerships and things like that. But yes.
all right. One last question on the consent. We have a parcel that is being divided out on the most westerly side. It looks to me like an easement. Is that what we have as part 3 here?
Perhaps the staff can bring up I don't have the reference plan with me, just so I can confirm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that parcel on the west side, that is an existing easement, storm sewer easement in favor of the city of Toronto. So we have to reference that on the new reference plan to continue to recognize that in the new legal description.
So after the consent, that easement will be part of this new building.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. As I said, I was just trying to figure out, because the consent lines are really quite imaginative. Okay, I have no other questions. Anyone else with the questions? Okay, committee, do I have a motion? I know there's a number of variances here. I believe we've got a fairly complicated application, but it's been through a number of approvals through the city and for funding, is correct?
That's correct.
Okay, Mr. Stinson?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you again for answering all our questions. You were very patient. I think in light of the size and scope of this project, in light of what the manager, deputy treasurer pointed out to us, in light of sort of the experience at this committee, for me, I move to approve this.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
We have the conditions from ECS.
My apologies. Conditional upon the conditions, of course, of ECS.
Okay.
I'll second that, Chair, but...
Through the chair, just for a point of clarification, the minor variance as amended, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Deleting variances 13 and 14. Okay. Okay, so I have a seconder, Mr. Reed, for approval of the consent and the variances as amended and subject to the conditions of engineering services. At forestry? No,
No,
just
no forestry.
engineering services. Okay. All those in favor of approval? That matter is carried. It was recommended by moved by Mr. Stinson, seconded by Mr. Reed. 4 members in approval and 1 in opposition, Mr. Stin. Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to the end of the applications. In my discussion with staff, I was reminded that in our agenda we have an additional page which is really just an update of the TLAB and the TLAB appeals. And occasionally I will read these because it really is helpful to understand whether the TLAB is in agreement with us or whether we really need to reconsider some of these. The first 2 TLAB appeals are interesting, number 1 and number 2. The applications were
Through the chair.
Yep.
My suggestion, it's there. These decisions are there for information.
Yes.
For the panel, it's not for deliberation.
I'm not deliberating.
Okay.
I wasn't proposing to deliberate. We've got the decisions. There really is no deliberation once we've got the decision. All I'm doing is commenting on the decisions, and the panel members can read them themselves. Item number 1 and number 2 were both appealed and refused by the TLAB, and the reason they were appealed is something that I think we should really take a look at, is that the applicants, when they showed up at the appeal board, did not provide any information. And so it's unusual in my experience that you appeal, go to the hearing, and have no information to say, and therefore the member cannot discuss it because there's nothing in front of them. The members went on to say in both of these that this is unusual. Okay, so we have 2 other TLAB decision orders. We don't have any decisions on those yet, do we?
Through the chair, going forward with future hearings, when it comes to the TLAB decisions, you can the DST can provide a summary. All it is that it's there for information for the panel members. It's in your agenda packages.
Mm-hmm.
Presumably they would have read it already. So I can just summarize that since the last hearing, there have been 2. I guess there's been 1 Ontario Land Tribunal appeal for 2746 to 2800 Kingston Road. It was refused by committee and it's been appealed by the owner. And there have been 2 TLAB decision orders issued since the last hearing. 1 for 689 Morris Road, originally refused by committee and appealed by the owner. The appeal was dismissed, and the decision of the committee is confirmed. The second TLAB decision is 151 Pitt, consent and minor variance applications. Originally refused by committee and appealed by the owner. The appeal is dismissed and the decision from the committee is confirmed.
Okay. Thank you very much. All I was, my purpose in bringing this forward really was just for the information of the committee. Okay, so our next meeting is Valentine's Day, February 14th, and I guess the meeting starts at 10 a.m. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for your attendance. Oh. We closed at 4:10. Sorry.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I
Okay. Yes.
Peter moved it.
Okay.
I
Peter
second it.
and second, and the timing is 4:13 by now, I guess.
Yeah.